I take my knife recommendations seriously. I understand that here in 2026, some people are paying $6 a gallon for gas right now. So when I make a recommendation for a knife that costs a couple $100, I want to make sure that I'm recommending something that people will enjoy. Something like the Buck Range Elite. American-made, crossbar-style knife, ambidextrous pocket clip, and in my opinion, the best heat treat that you can buy in America. The action is smooth. It's an excellent size, and it comes with a warranty that will most likely outlive you. And that's why I was surprised when I recommended it to a couple friends who decided to get in on the May Buck of the Month, which just happened to be a Star Wars edition Buck Range Elite. Now, I didn't buy one of these because I already had Range Elite at home, but a couple friends did, and I was super shocked when both of them reported a couple different issues. Are they just picky? Do they just not like the same things that I like? Or are they experiencing real issues? Shout out to my buddy Danny for sending me his instead of sending it right back to Buck, because I have to know, are these real issues and can I fix it? Let's find out. The moment this special edition Range Elite arrived, I wasted no time snatching it from the box to see what was going on. And here's what I noticed. The action wasn't just bad, it was on life support. I mean, it would flick open just fine if your thumbs happened to be super buff, or if you decided to loosen the pivot enough to the point of super sloppy blade play, or, if you introduced an overt amount of wrist action. Barring that, the action felt like it was running on sandpaper washers, which is completely the opposite of what I experienced with my very own Range Elite. Secondly, the blade would not center.
Did you try the blade centering tricks?
Yes, I tried the blade centering tricks. Yes, I've seen the videos. Yes, I have used those techniques before to great success. Look, 80% of the time, those blade centering tricks work. The other 20% of the time, they don't because of a manufacturing issue, typically dealing with tolerances. If it's not within spec, the blade centering can be an issue, and that can affect more than just the aesthetic. It can also affect the action of the knife, and in some cases indicate other issues as well, like a warped blade or improper thickness or large variances in washer size, etc., etc. If you followed none of that, what I'm saying is that the blade centering could be seen like the check engine light in your car. Most of the time, it means nothing. Most of the time. Before I go any further, I do want to issue a disclaimer. I am not recommending that you fix every $200+ knife that arrives at your doorstep with issues. In fact, it's kind of pointless when it's a knife like the Range Elite that comes with an industry-leading warranty. Issues like these are clearly indicating factory defects, and while sometimes you can fix them, sometimes you could also make it worse by trying. If your knife arrives like this, my official recommendation is to allow Buck or whatever company you bought it from to stand behind their warranty. It is one of the things you're paying for with the cost of this knife after all. Unfortunately, when it comes to knife tuning and issues from the factory, I turn into Curious George. If I mess this up, I am 100% buying this knife from my buddy.
I got it. Here, keep the change.
Now that I'm done covering my ass, it's time to get down to business and take this knife apart so that I can get a better idea of why it's not functioning as intended. But I'm not just taking apart the malfunctioning knife. At the same time, I'm going to take apart my own. This is the best way, in my opinion, to suss out what's going on. They're the same model, minus some minor differences between these two. Their innards and tolerances should mostly be the same. They say that comparison is the thief of joy, but in this case, it might actually allow a peasant like me to understand why one of these knives functions flawlessly and the other is acting like it belongs on the short bus to summer school for remedial lessons. This video is already in danger of being way too long, so I'm not going to be treating this like a step-by-step method for how to take apart and put back together your crossbar lock knife. Just know that I've made a video on this topic already. And if you want to see one of those videos where I do show you how to take apart a crossbar lock knife and reassemble it, Just let me know in the comments section. I'm happy to shoot a link your way. Now, when I first saw for myself just how bad the action on this knife was, even with the loose pivot, I had a suspicion that it had something to do with the Cerakote on the blade. For those of you who don't know, washers and bearings perform wildly better the smoother the surface is. It's not impossible for washers and bearings to eventually smooth out or polish a path over time when you add a wear-resistant coating like Cerakote into the equation. It just makes the task of wearing the action path into the blade that much more difficult. In this scenario, we have a crossbar lock which relies almost entirely on the contact point between the washers and the blade. There it was, Cerakote encroaching into the area the washers made contact with the blade. This is bad because they intentionally tried to leave the section of the blade that was supposed to make contact with the washers uncoated. They just didn't succeed. My hope is that I can polish out the part of the Cerakote that's interfering without ruining the rest of the blade in the process. After all, this limited edition Range Elite looks fantastic. I didn't want to ruin that. And if I'm lucky, this might also fix the blade centering issue as well, since partial coating causing uneven washers could potentially cause this problem too. I have my fingers crossed. So I got to work. First, by hand sanding the areas for more precise control with some sandpaper, before moving on to my benchtop buffing wheel to make sure that the action didn't just turn out good, but legendary. So now the question is, did removing the encroaching Cerakote from the action fix the problem? I had high hopes, but unfortunately, this only solved the issue of the action. Back to the drawing board. The action might be leagues better than it was, but with the blade still refusing to center, it's still looking like a knife bound for some unmarked box in the back of Buck's warehouse. But I wasn't going to give up that easily. After many attempts to use the regular blade centering tricks that still didn't work, I decided to take a look and compare the scales and liners between my personal knife and the malfunctioning one. That's when I noticed the second issue. The internal milling on the scales had a big, thick buildup that was not evident on my knife at all. It's true I'm a glutton for punishment, so I got out my calipers and started checking and confirming the tolerances were indeed off by a substantial margin. So now the challenge was to see if I could scrape away the aluminum burr that had built up along the edges of the internal milling that was forcing the liners to be off kilter. So I did what any reasonable person would do and decided that this aluminum could probably be scraped away en masse with some good old American blunt trauma. And that did the trick. I was able to get it to match up with the correct thickness according to my own personal Range Elite, and the issue of the aluminum burr buildup throwing off the handle tolerances was fixed. So now the question that you've all been waiting for: did this finally solve the blade centering issue? Take a look. I hate to say it, but I think that this knife actually has better action than my knife does. And that's the knife that I made the initial recommendation off of. I feel great sending this back to my buddy because now it's going to be functioning the way it was supposed to. Is that a guarantee that he'll love the knife in its perfect format? No, but I've already told him that if he doesn't, I will still happily take it off his hands because, let's be honest, this is freaking cool. The May Buck of the Month, the May the Force Be With You Range Elite, the white Cerakote pops, the orange finish, the orange distressed finish is cool, and they also introduced this milling on the aluminum handle scales, which is what we all wanted on the original Buck Range Elite. We all wanted that, but instead we got the smooth scales. And I'll tell you what, I love the smooth scales anyways. It allows me to fidget with it and be deplorable. Yes, fidgeting with my knives annoys my wife. But most of all, I'm excited because a challenge of a knife malfunctioning has been solved, and it took a little bit of doing. I want to reiterate, if your new Buck Range Elite comes like this one, where it's off-centered and it won't center and loosening the pivot doesn't fix it, and you have to introduce a ton of blade play, just call Buck. Send them an email. Send the knife back. Get a refund or ask them to fix it. I love the Range Elite, and I 100% still recommend it. I am not saying that every single one of their knives that they make like this has these issues. Now, if you are a curious George like me and you absolutely have to do this yourself, please, please, please remember that you will need Loctite by the end of it, because if you take this apart so many times, what will happen is that you'll get it perfect, and then you start messing with it, and all of a sudden the pivot is loose, and now the tolerances are off again. So get some Loctite. Remember, you're going to need to thread lock the pivot on this knife, and you'll be in good shape. It is possible. It is doable. It is also a massive pain in the ass. But I am truly excited for my buddy to get his knife back and to see what he thinks now that this is up to snuff with the Buck Range Elite. But let me know, have you ever gone this far to fix a knife that was brand new that you probably should have sent back for warranty? Let's have that discussion in the comment section down below, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see some more awesome knife and EDC content, go ahead and click on one of the videos that pops up next.